They say when you're in love, you don't notice the small cracks, you paint over them with hope. That's exactly what I did with her. Her name was Lily. We met at a friend's housewarming. The kind of night that wasn't supposed to mean anything. I was the quiet one in the corner, half listening to a conversation about stocks I didn't care about. When she walked in with that careless confidence only certain people have, like life always bends to their rhythm, she smiled at everyone. But when our eyes met, she paused. That pause changed everything. We talked for hours that night about films, music, the small things that make life feel real. It was easy, effortless, like finding someone who spoke in the same emotional language as you. Lily wasn't perfect. She was messy, impulsive, the kind of person who chased emotions like they were air. But I loved that about her. She made life feel louder. We started dating soon after, the kind of relationship that feels like a secret world. She'd fall asleep on my couch, her hair tangled in my hoodie. I'd write her notes before work, sometimes leave her coffee at her doorstep when she had exams. We were that couple people said would last. For a while, I believed it too. She'd tell me, "You make me feel safe," and I'd think that was a compliment. But later, I'd learn it was also a warning because people who crave chaos don't stay where they feel safe for too long. We moved in together after a year. Our apartment was small, second floor. Nothing fancy, but it felt like a promise. She hung her sketches on the walls. I fixed the broken blinds. We laughed about everything, from bills to burnt pasta. Then, something shifted. Not suddenly, quietly. She stopped laughing as much. Her phone stayed face down on the table. She'd start using words like space and self-growth. Words that sound mature but usually mean I'm leaving slowly. At first, I thought it was work stress. She'd been unhappy at her job for months, complaining about her boss, her coworkers, the monotony. I told her to quit, to take time off. She smiled weakly and said, "You always make things sound so simple." That night, she stayed out late with her friends from the art studio. I waited up, pretending not to care. When she finally came home, I asked if she was okay. She said, "Yeah, just tired." But her voice sounded like it was rehearsed. Over the next few weeks, her world started shrinking, not around us, but away from me. She began journaling again, dressing differently, spending weekends by herself. I wanted to be supportive. I told myself it was a phase. I even bought her a new set of paints, hoping she'd see it as encouragement. Instead, she said softly, "You don't have to fix everything, you know?" That was the first time I realized I might be losing her. But the truth is, I didn't know how to hold someone who wanted to be free. I kept telling myself, she just needs time. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You convince yourself that love can outlast distance, silence, and confusion. One evening while we were having dinner, she said it, the line I didn't see coming. "I think I need to find myself," she whispered, eyes on her plate. I froze. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," she said, voice trembling slightly. "I just don't feel like me anymore. I need to understand who I am." It's strange, the moment someone you love says they need to find themselves, you realize they've already started walking away. I asked if she wanted to take a break. She said, "Maybe, just some time apart." She still kissed me goodnight that day, still said "I love you," but her eyes didn't match her words. The next morning, she packed a small bag, just essentials, clothes, sketchbook, toothbrush, no goodbye note. Just a text a few hours later, "Don't wait up. I'll call when I can." And I did wait, every day. For a week, then 2, then a month. I told myself she was just figuring things out, that maybe she needed solitude. I even defended her when my friends said she was stringing me along. But love makes you foolish. It makes you see the best in someone, even when they're showing you their worst. So I kept waiting, hoping she'd call, hoping the version of her I fell in love with would walk back through that door. I didn't know that by the time she did, she wouldn't be coming back to me. The first week without her felt strange, like my life had developed an echo. Every object in the apartment still carried her fingerprints. Her coffee mug on the counter, her sweater on the chair, the scent of her shampoo still clinging to my pillow. Before moving forward, I have a humble request. If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this. I told myself she'd be back soon, that this was temporary, but days turned into weeks, and silence has a way of getting louder when you're the only one still waiting. At first, she texted once in a while, "Hey, I'm okay," or just needed some time to think. Simple messages, no warmth, no depth, but I clung to them like proof that she still cared. Then even those stopped coming. The night she stopped replying was the night I stopped sleeping properly. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours, my phone on the nightstand, screen lighting up every few minutes with nothing but useless notifications. It's funny how your body gets used to another person's presence. The small sounds, the late night laughter, the warmth of someone breathing beside you. When that's gone, even silence feels sharp. I tried distracting myself. I started going to the gym again, meeting friends, filling my hours so I wouldn't feel the absence. But grief has a way of finding you in still moments. Brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, seeing her name pop up in an old photo. After 2 months, I finally texted her, "Hey, just wanted to check in. You doing okay?" She replied 6 hours later, "Yeah, just figuring things out." "No, I miss you." "No, how are you?" "Just figuring things out." That phrase became a knife. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way she'd always keep one part of herself hidden, like she needed secrets to feel alive. The way she'd talk about independence but loved being chased. And for the first time, I started asking myself, what if she wasn't finding herself? What if she was just finding someone else? Still, I couldn't bring myself to believe it, because to believe it meant admitting I'd been naive. A few weeks later, I ran into one of her friends at a cafe, Amy. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she asked carefully. I tried to sound casual. "Good. You've heard from Lily." Amy hesitated. "Yeah, she's been busy." "Busy with what?" I asked, half smiling. She looked down at her coffee. Just new stuff. You know, exploring. The way she said exploring made my stomach twist. When I got home that night, I sat on the floor beside the bed and scrolled through Lily's Instagram. Her last post was a quote, "Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find who you really are." The caption read, "Grateful for growth." There were no pictures of us anymore. The ones that used to be on her feed, the beach trip, the anniversary dinner, the one where she wore my hoodie, all gone. Deleted, like they never happened. That hurt more than anything else. Because deleting photos means something different. It means rewriting your history. I remember calling her that night. She didn't pick up, so I texted her again, just wondering if we're still US. She didn't reply. For days, I kept checking if she'd seen it. She had no response. That's when I started realizing something. She wasn't confused. She wasn't lost. She was deciding, and I was no longer a part of what she wanted to find. One evening, I drove to the park where we used to sit after work. The bench was still there, our initials carved into the wood. I ran my fingers over them and felt this wave of something I couldn't name. Not anger, not sadness, just the quiet understanding that she was somewhere else. Probably laughing, probably fine, and I was here trying to make sense of why love always leaves before it explains itself. I remember that night vividly. The air was cold, the sky bruised purple, and the city sounded far away. I realized how much of myself I had built around her, my routines, my joy, my sense of direction. When someone leaves like that, they don't just walk away from you. They take the version of you that only existed with them. It took me a while to understand that I couldn't wait forever, that finding yourself doesn't require destroying someone else in the process, but I wasn't ready to hate her yet. Not until I found out the truth. Because love doesn't die the moment someone leaves. It dies the moment you find out why. There's a stage after someone leaves you that's worse than heartbreak. It's denial. Not the kind where you refuse to believe they're gone, but the kind where you keep rewriting the story in your head to make their absence make sense. That's where I was. I told myself she just needed time, that she'd come back when she figured things out, that maybe this was healthy. People need space, right? That's what I kept saying to myself. Even as my gut screamed the opposite. It's strange how easy it is to lie to yourself when the truth feels unbearable. For months, I tried to stay the version of me she loved. The calm, supportive guy who never panicked. I'd send her the occasional message, something light, "Hey, saw something that reminded me of you," or "Hope you're eating well." Sometimes she'd reply with a heart emoji, sometimes not at all. I convinced myself that a heart emoji still meant something, that it was proof she hadn't moved on, that she still thought of me. I didn't realize I was clinging to scraps. My friends tried to pull me out of it. "Man, she ghosted you. Stop making excuses," one of them said. But I didn't want to believe her silence was rejection. I needed it to mean something gentler. Confusion, exhaustion, anything but indifference. So I kept waiting. Every weekend I'd find myself checking the same cafe we used to go to, ordering her favorite drink out of habit. I even kept her contact pinned at the top of my messages, just so I wouldn't miss her name if she texted. That's what denial does. It doesn't let you grieve. It makes you build a fantasy where the other person is just taking a break, not disappearing. A few months passed, and I started hearing her name again from mutual friends. In passing conversations, but no one said much. Just vague comments like, "Lily's been busy lately." Busy. Everyone kept using that word, like it was supposed to mean something innocent. Then one night, I saw her. It was late, and I was walking back from work when I noticed her car parked outside a small Italian restaurant downtown. It wasn't the car that caught my eye, it was her laugh. I hadn't heard that laugh in months, but it was unmistakable. She was sitting by the window. Her hair was shorter now, her smile a little too bright. And across from her a man I didn't recognize. He was leaning in close. She was laughing, touching her necklace. Her eyes glowing in that way they used to, when she wanted someone to like her. For a second I froze. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. Maybe it's her brother, maybe a friend, maybe anything but what it looked like. But then she reached across the table, and took his hand. And that's when the denial cracked. I didn't confront her, didn't storm in, or make a scene. I just stood there, half hidden behind a lamppost, feeling something inside me collapse. It wasn't rage, not yet, just emptiness. The kind that makes you feel like your body's still there, but your heart's somewhere on the floor. I walked home in silence. No music, no thoughts. Just the sound of my footsteps, and the echo of her laugh. When I got back, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my phone. No new messages, no missed calls, nothing. I realized then that love doesn't always end with a goodbye. Sometimes it ends quietly, while you're still hoping it hasn't. The next morning, she texted me as if the universe wanted to twist the knife a little deeper. "Hey, just checking in. You doing okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't love. It was pity disguised as care. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "Yeah, I'm fine. Hope you're doing well too." I wanted her to think I was okay, because sometimes pretending you're fine is the only dignity you have left. She replied an hour later, "That's good. I'm proud of you." I almost laughed. Proud of me. For what's surviving her. That day, I started to understand something about people like her. They want to leave, but they don't want to be the bad guy. They want to feel like they still care, even when they've already moved on. So I gave her what she wanted. Politeness. Distance. The illusion that we were both fine, but inside, I was a mess. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, replaying everything we'd ever said, wondering when exactly she'd started drifting away. Was it something I did? Was I too predictable? Too steady? Too boring? You start dissecting yourself after someone leaves you like that. You start believing you weren't enough, when in truth, They just outgrew the version of love you offered. I started writing again, not for her, but to make sense of what I was feeling. Every page was a conversation I never got to have. And in those late-night scribbles, I started realizing that denial isn't just a refusal to see the truth. It's a desperate attempt to keep your identity intact. Because once you accept that they stopped loving you, you have to also accept that the version of yourself who existed for them no longer matters. That's the part that hurts the most. I didn't know it then, but denial was about to turn into something else. Clarity, because soon, I'd see something that would confirm what my heart already knew. She hadn't been finding herself, she'd been finding him. The universe has a cruel sense of timing. It waits for the moment you think you're finally okay, before it reminds you you're not. It had been for months since I'd last seen her. 4 months of pretending to move on. 4 months of rehearsing what I'd say if she ever came back. Then one night, it happened. I was at a friend's birthday party. One of those crowded rooftop gatherings with cheap beer and bad music. I didn't want to be there, but my friends insisted I needed to get out again. So I went, and for a while, I almost felt normal. Until someone said her name. Hey, did you hear Lily's working at that new design firm downtown? The name hit me like a forgotten memory, suddenly waking up. I turned slightly, trying not to look too interested. Yeah, another guy said. She's dating that guy from her art collective. What's his name? Jason. And just like that, my stomach dropped. Jason. The same guy she was with at the restaurant that night. Asterisk. I excused myself, went to the far end of the roof, and just stood there, staring at the city lights. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that she'd moved on, or that she'd done it so easily. All that talk about finding herself. All that silence I'd forgiven, it had all been a lie. She hadn't been lost, she'd just been replaced. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my phone in my hand, fighting the urge to text her, not to win her back, just to ask why. Why didn't she tell me the truth? Why did she make me wait while she started a new life? But I didn't text, because what would I even say? Hey, congratulations on moving on without me. The next morning, I went to a cafe near my office. The same one we used to go to every Friday. The one where she'd sit by the window sketching while I read. And that's where I saw her again. She walked in with him. Jason. He had his hand around her waist like it had always belonged there. She looked happy, unbothered. I froze. For a second, she didn't notice me. But then her eyes met mine. That second felt longer than the 4 months she'd been gone. Her expression changed. Surprise, guilt, then a forced smile. She whispered something to him, and they walked toward a table. Not the one we used to sit at. A new one. In the corner, I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at my untouched coffee. It wasn't anger anymore. It was the slow, dull ache of realization that I had been waiting for someone who was never coming back. When she walked past me to leave, she stopped for a second. Hey, she said softly. I nodded. Hey, she hesitated. You look good. So do you. I lied. There was this awkward pause, the kind that only exists between people who once knew everything about each other, but now can't even find the right words. I hope you're doing okay, she said, her voice gentle. I'm fine, I replied. She smiled faintly. Good. Then she left, and that was it. No apology, no closure, just two strangers pretending to be polite. I remember walking home that day feeling strangely calm, like something inside me had finally broken, but in a way that made sense. I wasn't angry at her anymore, I was angry at myself, for believing her words, for defending her silence, for loving someone who only saw me as a checkpoint on her way somewhere else. That night, I opened the drawer where I'd kept all her things. Her sketches, her hoodie, the little note she'd left on our anniversary. I threw them all in a box and taped it shut. I didn't throw it away though, not yet. Maybe because I wasn't ready to erase her completely. Not while she was still echoing in every part of my life. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in me. I stopped waiting. I stopped checking her social media. I even started focusing on work again. Slowly, the fog began to lift. Until one day, I got an email from her. Subject line, can we talk? My heart skipped. Against my better judgment, I opened it. She wrote, I know I hurt you. I didn't mean for things to happen like that. I was confused. I thought I needed to find myself, but I think I was just scared. I'm sorry for disappearing. I miss our talks. No mention of him. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just vague words that sounded like regret, but felt like manipulation. For the first time, I didn't reply right away. I read the email again and again, waiting for that old ache to return. But it did and single quotes to instead. There was something new clarity. I realized she wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was reaching out because her new world wasn't as warm as she thought it would be. She wanted reassurance, not redemption. So I didn't give her either. Asterisk, I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and felt a calm I hadn't felt in months. That's when I knew the part of me that still belonged to her was gone. And what came next wouldn't be about love or pain. It would be about justice, not the loud, vengeful kind, the quiet one. The kind where you rebuild so beautifully that the person who broke you wishes they'd stayed. When you stop loving someone, the silence that follows feels different. It's not peaceful, it's heavy, like standing in the ruins of a house you once built, knowing no one's coming back. Asterisk, after that email, something in me clicked, not in a bitter, dramatic way, in a slow, deliberate kind of way. The kind where you stop asking why me, and start thinking, never again. Asterisk, I started putting energy back into myself. Woke up earlier, worked out, took on a new project at work. My boss noticed, my friends noticed, hell, even I barely recognized myself. but sometimes growth feels like revenge. And maybe, deep down, I wanted her to see it too. I didn't block her on social media. Not anymore. I wanted her to see my life moving forward. To see that I wasn't curled up in some emotional corner waiting for her text. And she did notice that 2 weeks later, she viewed one of my stories, then another. Then she liked a post from 3 months ago, one where I was laughing with friends at a bar. That's subtle. I see you move people pull when they're testing the waters. I didn't respond, but I'll admit it gave me a rush. Not because I wanted her back, but because for the first time, I had control. You know what's crazy? People always think closure comes from talking things out. But sometimes closure is watching the person who hurt you realize they lost access to you. It was like I had flipped the switch. She wasn't my weakness anymore. She was just another lesson. Still, part of me wanted her to feel what I'd felt. The confusion, the insecurity, the loss. One night I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, can we meet? Just to talk? I didn't have to ask who it was. I knew. I stared at the screen for a minute, thinking about all the nights I'd waited for that text. And now, when it finally came, I felt nothing. I replied, I don't think that's a good idea. She texted again, please, just one coffee. I owe you that. And just like that, my comm cracked. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd done to me. So I agreed. We met at that same cafe. Poetic, right? She showed up in a long beige coat, her hair shorter, her eyes tired. There was something different about her. The confidence she once carried like armor was gone. Hey, she said quietly, sitting down. Hey. The silence between us was thick. She sighed, running her fingers along her cup. You look different. I said. A lot's changed. I can tell. She gave a small, nervous laugh. I guess I just wanted to see you. I've been thinking a lot about everything. Everything, I repeated. Or everyone. She winced. I deserve that. I leaned back. You deserve honesty. That's all I ever wanted. Her eyes softened. I made a mistake. Okay. I thought I wanted freedom, but I think I just wanted to run away from something I didn't understand. From what? I asked. From how much I cared about you. It sounded rehearsed, the kind of line people say when they're trying to soften their guilt. I smiled faintly. You didn't care about me, Lily. You cared about what I gave you. Attention, stability, the version of yourself you liked when you were with me. She didn't respond, just stared down at her coffee like it could save her. You moved on, I continued. You didn't owe me an explanation for that, but you owed me honesty. You owed me a goodbye that wasn't silence. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said, finishing my drink. You are. There was a long pause. She looked like she wanted to say more, but couldn't. Finally, she asked, is there someone else now? The question caught me off guard. Why does it matter? Because I need to know if I already lost you, she said softly. You lost me the day you lied. That shut her up. She nodded, wiping a tear she probably didn't want me to see. I stood up, left a tip on the table, and said, take care of yourself. And just like that, I walked out. No dramatic music, no cinematic ending. Just peace, real. Quiet, earned peace. That night, she texted again. Thank you for meeting me. I just wanted to see you one last time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For the first time in months, I realized the anger wasn't about her. It was about me, the part of me that allowed her to treat me like an option when I was never supposed to be one. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was angry that I'd let her rewrite my worth. And that's the thing about anger. It's a stage, not a home. Asterisk, you can live in it for a while, but if you stay too long, it starts to look like comfort. So I decided to move forward. I took that job offer in another city, one I'd been hesitating about because it felt like running away. But maybe sometimes running isn't weakness. Sometimes it's how you survive. As I packed my things, I found that old box of her stuff I'd taped up months ago. I didn't open it. I just walked outside, found the nearest dumpster, and dropped it in. It didn't feel dramatic or symbolic. It just felt necessary. When I looked back at the empty spot where the box used to be, it hit me. I wasn't deleting her anymore. I was just freeing space for myself. And that's when the anger finally turned into something softer. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. They say revenge is best served cold. But mine wasn't cold at all. It was calm, quiet, and deliberate. It wasn't about payback in the way people imagine. No dramatic confrontations. No trying to hurt her back. My revenge was simple. I got better. And not in that cliche, Instagram, motivational way. I mean really better. Healthier, fitter, more focused. I moved to a new city, new skyline, new rhythm. The first morning there, I stood by the window of my tiny apartment, sunlight spilling over the boxes I hadn't unpacked yet, and realized I hadn't thought about her once since waking up. That was when I knew the healing had begun. I poured myself into my new job, long hours, big projects, quiet confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need validation anymore. My coworkers started looking up to me. My boss trusted me, with more responsibility, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. One night after work, a few of us went out for dinner. I remember laughing, genuinely laughing, at something one of my teammates said, and catching myself mid-laugh, because it hit me. I wasn't faking it anymore. I was happy. That feeling, that effortless joy, was the truest revenge of all. A few months later, my team got nominated for an industry award. I ended up giving a short presentation on stage. It wasn't some Hollywood movie moment, but when I walked off and people clapped, it felt like I had walked out of everything she had ever made me feel small about. Later that night, I posted a photo, just me on stage, smiling under the lights. The caption read, "Sometimes you lose people, so you can find yourself." I didn't tag her. I didn't need to, but I knew she saw it. A week later, her name appeared again, a message request on Instagram. "Proud of you. You deserve all of it." For a moment, the old me might have replied, might have fallen into the trap of nostalgia and sympathy, but this version of me, he didn't owe her a reaction, so I didn't open it. I just archived it and went on with my night. That's when I realized silence can be louder than words. Over time, people asked if I ever got closure. I used to think closure meant hearing, "I'm sorry," but it's not. Closure is realizing that you no longer need to hear it. I started traveling more, meeting new people, rediscovering all the little things that made me who I was before her. Music, photography, late night walks. Every habit she once called boring became my peace again. And then, life did what it always does. It brought someone new. Her name was Mia. She wasn't loud or complicated. She was kind, real. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She listened, really listened, and when she laughed, it didn't sound like an echo of someone else's memory. We met at a small music festival, nothing planned, nothing cinematic. But when I talked to her, it felt easy, like breathing, after holding your breath too long at first. I hesitated. I didn't want to repeat old patterns, but then I remembered I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't looking for love to fix me. I was already whole. That's the thing about true healing. It doesn't make you bitter. It makes you awake. One evening, Mia and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed. A friend had tagged me in a post, something about a business article, that mentioned me as one of the top young strategists to watch. Mia smiled. "That's you?" I nodded, laughing. "Guess so." She raised her glass 2-second chances. I raised mine, to peace. That moment, not the applause, not the award, that quiet toast in a cozy restaurant, that was my revenge. Because she had taken my peace once, and now I'd built it back, piece by piece. Without her even knowing, sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong, it's proving yourself right. A year later, I got a message from an old mutual friend. "Hey, random, but did you know Lily moved back here? She broke up with that guy a while ago." I didn't respond, just smiled, because I wasn't curious anymore. Whatever chapter she was in now, it wasn't mine. The story between us had ended, but the story after her, that's the one that mattered. And maybe that's what growing up really is, realizing not every love story ends with forgiveness or reunion. Some end with self-respect, because sometimes revenge doesn't come from what you do to someone, it comes from what you become after them. It had been almost a year since I last thought about her, really thought about her. Life had become steady, even beautiful in its simplicity. Mornings with coffee and silence, evenings spent laughing with people who actually stayed, and weekends that felt like mine again. I'd stopped wondering how she was doing, stopped checking who viewed my stories, stopped letting memories dictate my peace. She had become what old heartbreaks are supposed to become, a story that doesn't sting anymore. Then one night, it happened. I was at home finishing a late night work call when my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in nearly a year lit up the screen. Lily. I stared at it for a moment. My first instinct wasn't shock, it was hesitation. That small, quiet kind of stillness that happens when something from your past suddenly knocks on your present. The message was short. "Hey, I don't know if you'll even see this, but I wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything." I didn't reply. Not right away. I sat back, reading it over and over, trying to decide what kind of sorry it was. The kind that wants closure, or the kind that wants a second chance. A few hours later, another message came. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. You didn't deserve the way I left. I wasn't honest. Not with you, not with myself." There was a pause. "Can we talk?" I won't lie, my chest tightened. Not because I wanted her back, but because after all this time, she was still capable of stirring something. I left the message unread and went to bed. But my sleep was restless. Every memory I'd carefully filed away came back in fragments. The laughter, the betrayal, the silence, the cafe, that final goodbye. By morning, my phone had another text. "I saw your post from the conference. You look happy. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm not asking for anything. I just miss my friend." That last line stayed with me. I miss my friend. That sounded harmless, almost kind. But I'd learned enough to recognize the quiet pull of nostalgia. The way it disguises itself as connection when it's really just guilt, looking for comfort. For 2 days, I didn't respond. Then, one evening, curiosity, or maybe closure, got the better of me. I typed, "Hey, I saw your messages. I appreciate what you said. I hope you're doing okay too." A few seconds later, the typing dots appeared. Then her reply, "I'd love to see you, if that's okay. Just for coffee." It was almost poetic. How life circles back to the places it once broke you. We met that weekend at a new cafe this time. Not the old one. I chose that on purpose. I didn't want our past hanging in the air like a ghost. She arrived late, as always, but she looked different. Not in the superficial way, in the human way. Softer somehow. More fragile. "Wow," she said when she saw me. "You really changed." I smiled. "People do." She sat down, fidgeting with her cup. "You probably hate that I reached out." "I don't hate it," I said, "but I don't really understand it either." She sighed. "I don't blame you. I just needed to say what I couldn't say before." I stayed quiet. Let her speak. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she continued. "Back then, when I said I needed space, I told myself it was about independence, but really, it was about fear. You were so good to me, and I didn't think I deserved that, so I sabotaged it. And when I met Jason, I convinced myself it was something deeper, but it wasn't. It was just easy." She looked down. "It didn't last. He cheated on me, the same way I cheated your trust." There it was, the confession I'd imagined 100 times. But now that it was real, it didn't feel like victory. It felt sad. "I'm sorry you went through that," I said quietly, and I meant it. She blinked, surprised. "You don't hate me?" "No," I said. "I did. for a while, but hating you was just a way of staying connected, and I don't want that anymore." She nodded, tears glistening. "You were the best thing that happened to me, and I ruined it." I took a breath. "You didn't ruin it. You just ended it. And honestly, I think it was supposed to end." She stared at me, almost like she didn't recognize who I'd become. Maybe she didn't, because I wasn't the same man she left. We talked for about an hour. Nothing emotional, nothing heavy. Just two people catching up on lives that no longer intertwine. She told me about her new job, her apartment, how she'd started therapy. She laughed once or twice, but her eyes stayed sad. When it was time to leave, she stood up slowly. "You really are happy, aren't you?" "I am," I said. "But not because of anyone else. Because I finally chose myself." She nodded, smiling through the pain. "You deserve that." Then she hesitated, like she wanted to say more, but instead whispered, "Goodbye." It wasn't the kind of goodbye we'd had before. No unfinished words. No lingering looks. Just peace. As she walked away, I didn't feel anger or regret. I just felt release. That night, I got home and sat by the window, city lights flickering in the distance. I thought about how strange life is, how people break you, vanish, and sometimes come back, just to show you how far you've come without them. For the first time, her return didn't reopen wounds. It just confirmed that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering differently. She reached out to find closure. I already had mine. Time doesn't erase people, it just rewrites their meaning. Lily used to be a name that made my chest tighten. Now it's just a story I once lived through, a story that taught me more about love, loss, and myself than any calm relationship ever could. A few months passed after that coffee. She didn't text again, and I didn't expect her to. The chapter had closed, not slammed shut, just quietly sealed by mutual understanding. Life had moved on, and so had I. Mia and I had grown closer. What started as easy companionship had deepened into something real, patient, grounding, and gentle. She never asked about my past unless I brought it up, and when I did, she listened without judgment. That was her way.com, where Lily had been chaos, steady where Lily had been wild. One night, we were watching the sunset from my balcony. The sky burned in soft oranges and pinks, that kind of light that makes the world look forgiving. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You go quiet when you think too much." I smiled. "Old habit. What were you thinking about?" "About how different this feels," I said. She looked up. "Different good or different scary?" "Different, right?" She smiled, kissed my cheek and said, "Then don't overthink it." And I did in single quotes too. It was strange how someone else's love could heal wounds they never caused. But maybe that's what the right person does. They don't fix you. They make you feel safe enough to fix yourself. Over the next few weeks I found myself reflecting more, not on what happened between Lily and me, but on who I became because of it. There was a time when I measured my worth by someone else's attention, when I thought being loved meant being chosen, and being chosen meant being enough, but I was wrong. Love isn't validation. It's reflection of who you are, what you accept, and what you refuse to settle for again. That realization changed everything. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since before her. At first, the words came out awkward and hesitant, like I was learning my own voice all over again. But soon, it flowed. I wrote about anger, forgiveness, loneliness, and eventually, peace. I wrote not to remember her, but to remember myself. One evening, while cleaning my desk, I found an old photo, one of me and Lily at some art fair years ago. We were laughing at something off camera, eyes bright, hands almost touching. I looked at it for a long moment, then placed it back in the drawer, not out of bitterness, but gratitude. Because that version of me, naive as he was, had loved without limits, and that mattered. He deserved to be remembered too. The next morning, I got a message from an unknown number. It was short. "Thank you for forgiving me when I couldn't forgive myself. I wish you all the happiness in the world." No name, but I knew. I smiled, typed back one word, peace, and hit send. That was it. The true ending, not a reunion, not a rekindling. Just two people finally walking in opposite directions without resentment. Weeks later, I went hiking alone for the first time in years. No phone, no music, just the sound of wind and earth beneath my feet. At the top of the trail, I sat overlooking the city. The same skyline where so much had broken me now looked peaceful, distant, small. I thought about everything. The late night arguments, the betrayal, the loneliness, the rebuilding, and I realized something simple. None of it was wasted. Every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every unanswered text, it all built the version of me who could finally sit here, alone, and feel whole. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't saying it's okay. It's saying, it happened, and I'm still here. It's not forgetting what someone did. It's remembering who you became because of it. The beauty of reflection, you stop wishing the past had gone differently, and start appreciating that it happened exactly the way it needed to. I took a deep breath, letting the wind hit my face, and whispered more to myself than anyone, "Thank you for breaking me, because now I know how to rebuild." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I smiled. Not for her, not for revenge, but for me. Because this was the end I never knew I needed. Quiet, free, whole. A humble request for you all. If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this. And that's how it ends. Not with pain. Not with anger, but with peace. Because the best kind of closure isn't a conversation, it's growth.